It was a Monday morning when Emma walked through the iron gates of that imposing mansion for the very first time. She wore her best outfit, plain but clean, and in her eyes shone the quiet hope of someone who's waited their whole life for just one chance, and in her chest, the fragile promise of a new beginning. She'd been called in urgently to care for a baby who, according to the housekeeper, no one could manage to calm down. Emma, with hands weathered by life and a heart full of tenderness, smiled softly. A baby who cries too much only wants one thing: arms and love. The rest is just silence. In the living room, a woman came down the stairs with deliberate, firm steps. Hair perfectly styled, heels clicking, designer perfume lingering in the air, and a cold gaze that spoke louder than 1,000 words. Amelia. The lady of the house. Young. Wealthy. Possessing a distant kind of beauty that felt more like frost than warmth. She was married to a businessman who spent more time in his office than at home and was the mother of a little boy she'd never truly learned to love. If you can get him to stop crying, the job's yours. But don't get too attached. Help is help. Emma simply nodded. She had a way of listening with her heart more than her ears. And there, in the quiet nursery, she saw him for the first time. Jasper. Just a few months old. A beautiful face. Frightened eyes, and a deep, wordless loneliness he already carried in his tiny chest. He was crying. Again. Emma stepped closer, slowly. Shoo. It's okay, my little angel. You're safe now. She picked him up as if she were holding the whole world in her arms. She began to hum a lullaby, one her own mother used to sing to her as a child. One of those simple songs only someone who's known pain can truly sing with honesty. And then, the miracle happened. Jasper stopped crying. And smiled. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. Emma became everything to that boy: nanny, mother, friend, protector. She prepared his bottles, washed his clothes, changed his diapers, rocked him to sleep, and whenever she could, she told him stories. Meanwhile, Amelia remained distant. Parties. Trips. Business dinners. Her bedroom was always empty, and when she did appear, it was only for social media photos or to give commands. Emma, he's getting too attached to you. That's not good. You need to keep your distance. But how do you keep your distance from someone who looks at you like you're their whole world? Jasper grew, learning his first words. One night, bothered by how affectionate Jasper was with Emma, Amelia locked the nursery door. Emma couldn't put him to sleep like she always did. And the boy cried. He cried until he passed out from exhaustion. Even with a broken heart, Emma stayed strong. She knew she was there out of love. And to her, love was never about receiving, it was about giving, even with no promise in return. Jasper's first birthday was special. Emma spent nights hand-sewing a tiny outfit from a cheap fabric she'd bought at a corner store. It was simple, but embroidered with tiny blue flowers and stitched with care in every thread. On the morning of the party, before any guests arrived, she dressed Jasper with the gentlest touch in the world. He smiled. It was like he was wearing her embrace. But then, Amelia walked in. Silence. She looked at the boy from head to toe, and with disdain in her eyes, ripped the outfit off and tossed it aside right in front of Emma. You think he's going to wear that? We're hosting ambassadors, Emma. This isn't a church rummage sale. Emma said nothing. She just picked up the outfit from the floor, and fought back the tears threatening to fall. That day, for the first time, Jasper cried in Amelia's arms. And Emma, standing outside the ballroom, listened from afar. The party. The laughter. And the muffled sound of a child's cry, the one she wasn't allowed to soothe. And there, holding the fabric in her hands, she wondered. How much longer could love endure, contempt? Time passed. Jasper was no longer a baby in arms. He'd started to take his first steps, string together syllables, and recognize the world around him. But among all the faces, there was one he searched for every day, with eager eyes and a light heart. Emma. The nanny. The woman who held him through fevers, rocked him through sleepless nights. Who smiled with her eyes every time he laughed and wept in silence whenever he fell. Emma wasn't just a caregiver. She was the shelter in a childhood that was quiet, lonely, neglected. And the more the boy grew, the deeper their bond became. Jasper clung to the hem of her skirt like someone who'd found safe harbor. He ate better when she fed him. Slept better when she sang. And he smiled differently, just for her. But something shifted. Amelia started to notice. She'd come home late from parties, the scent of champagne still on her clothes, and from across the house, she'd hear Jasper's laughter echoing from the bedroom. It was the sound of a connection she'd never managed to build with her own son. One day, she watched from a distance as Jasper, after a tumble, ran into Emma's arms. But what she felt wasn't gratitude. It was jealousy. Wounded pride. Something inside her ached. Not out of love for her son, but because her ego couldn't accept that he needed the help more than he needed his own mother. The next morning, everything began to change. The instructions came sharp. Emma, I want Jasper to start getting used to not having you around all the time. He needs to understand who his real mother is. Emma simply nodded, eyes cast downward. But inside, she felt the first crack. She was cut out of his mealtimes. Forbidden from putting him to bed. The toys they once shared were now locked away in a cabinet. Amelia hired a child development consultant to emotionally wean her son off the nanny. Emma became a quiet shadow. Only called when absolutely necessary. But even from a distance, she stayed alert. She heard the muffled cries, the ones no one else seemed to hear. And every night, before going to sleep, she whispered to herself, "Tomorrow, he'll smile at me again. I know he will." But jealousy has the power to blind and destroy. One rainy afternoon, the emotional breaking point came. Amelia, hosting a fancy brunch with her wealthy friends, was soaking in the compliments on the house when Jasper ran across the room. And right there in front of everyone, he reached out his tiny arms toward Emma, who was walking by with a tray, and shouted, "Mommy Emma." Silence. Complete. Glasses froze mid-air. Polite laughs vanished, replaced by awkward stares. Emma froze, too. She wanted to explain, to apologize, to disappear. But Amelia didn't leave space for anything. "Mommy? That woman is the nanny. She changes diapers. Don't confuse affection with a paycheck, Emma. Leave the room. Now. And don't you dare touch my son again." Her words hit like stone. Emma walked out, face soaked. Not from the rain, but from something far more cruel, humiliation. Jasper, confused, stood frozen, staring at the door his mommy Emma had just disappeared through. That night, Emma was fired. No chance to say goodbye. She left with 2 small bags, and a pain that didn't fit in any suitcase. The rain poured hard. But the weight in her chest was heavier than any storm. She walked to the bus stop, and didn't look back. In the days that followed, the mansion fell silent. Jasper stopped playing. Refused food. He woke up in the middle of the night, calling out for someone who wasn't there anymore. "Mommy? Mommy Emma? Where are you?" Amelia tried other nannies. 2 came. 3 left. None stayed. None could even get close. Jasper cried constantly. Refused to leave his room. The fever hit on the 3rd day. High. Relentless. The doctor came. Prescribed meds. Nothing worked. Amelia panicked. Deep down, she knew exactly what her son needed. In the early hours of the 4th day, her hands shaking, she picked up the phone. She called the former housekeeper and with a low, cold voice, said, "Find Emma. Please, for God's sake." The next morning, when Emma stepped back into the mansion, the boy was lying in bed pale, weak, and silent. She walked over slowly. "I'm here, my love." Jasper turned his little face and smiled for the first time in days. Tears streamed down Emma's cheeks as he reached out his tiny arms, as if everything was right again. And in that embrace, without a single word, Jasper healed. It was just an ordinary evening, but for Jasper, that day would stay with him forever. The sky was painted in golden hues, and a gentle breeze danced across the backyard. Jasper, now 10 years old, sat on the porch steps, frustrated by his untied shoelaces. He had tried 10 times to tie the brand new sneakers his biological mom had bought, but the bows kept falling apart. Emma stepped out the door holding a glass of juice. She watched quietly for a few seconds before walking over and sitting beside him. "Fighting those sneakers again, champ?" she asked with a soft smile. "They keep coming undone. I just can't get the knot right." Emma crouched down, took the shoe in her hands with care, and began showing him. "Wanna know a secret?" "This knot here," she said slowly, demonstrating each step with calm precision, "it doesn't come loose easily. I call it the trust knot. If you focus and believe it'll hold, it stays tight." Jasper watched her closely, like she was revealing some kind of magic trick. "What if I mess it up?" he asked, his voice still unsure. Emma looked straight into his eyes and replied gently. "Mistakes are part of it. Sometimes, you've got to redo the knot 10 times before it holds. What matters is not giving up. And knowing there's always someone nearby when life gets a little tangled." Jasper stayed quiet for a moment. Then, with a shy glance, he said, "You always help me, don't you?" Emma smiled, holding back the tears. "Every time I can, sweetheart." As he tried again with the new knot, Jasper remembered all the other times Emma had been there for him. She was the one who ran beside him when he learned to ride his bike without training wheels, and the one who hugged him tight when he fell, skinned his knee, and held back tears just so he wouldn't let her down. She was the one who knew the perfect mix of honey and lemon for a sore throat, the one who taught him to sort laundry by colors, the one who made him memorize his multiplication tables using silly songs. Emma didn't just care for him, she was shaping him for the world, without him even noticing. Every small piece of advice, every simple word, was wrapped in love. Like the day she told him that being kind was more important than being right. Or the time she explained that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but doing the right thing even when you're scared. And sitting there next to her, Jasper realized something: the best parts of who he was, his values, his strength, his heart, had come from Emma's hands, her voice, and her eyes. Suddenly, he hugged her. A tight, honest hug, the kind only a child who truly feels safe can give. In that moment, Emma knew that no matter what the future held, she had already left a piece of her love safely tucked away in his heart. And Jasper, even if he didn't fully understand it yet, knew that this moment, this way of teaching, caring, and simply being there, was real love. Now, almost 11, Jasper was a sensitive, well-mannered, gentle boy, and his love for Emma was something no one could fully explain or erase. Even older, he still sought the comfort of her embrace on hard days. Still sat beside her at dinner, even when his parents insisted he sit at the far end of the table. And every night, before bed, he'd ask, "Just one more story, Emma, the one about the little bird who found his way home." And she'd tell it. Even tired. Even exhausted. Even humiliated. Because to Emma, that boy was the love of her life. He was the child God had given her in a crooked way, but with a love that was whole. But time, that old enemy of the proud, brought Amelia a bitter realization: she had failed. Despite all her efforts, her son loved another woman like a mother. Jasper respected Amelia. He greeted her, followed rules. But there was no spark. No embrace. No bond. And the older he got, the more obvious the distance became. It was one of those afternoons, after a fight with her husband about their son's coldness, that Amelia muttered to herself, eyes fixed on the mirror. She's given all she had to give. The plan was born out of jealousy and the silent certainty that Emma was no longer needed. Amelia waited for the right moment. Waited until Jasper was at school. Waited until the staff had left. Then, she forgot a sapphire ring worth a small fortune inside the guest room closet. The same room Emma sometimes rested in after lunch. To complete the setup, she went to her private safe, pulled out a gold bracelet, and carefully tucked it among Emma's clothes with her own hands. Then she called the police. Hours later, Jasper came home from school to chaos. Cops in the living room. Staff shaken. Amelia anxious, dramatic, sprawled across the couch. And in the middle of it all, Emma frightened, shaking, her hands cuffed behind her back. Ms. Amelia, I swear on my soul, I've never touched anything that didn't belong to me. That gold, those jewels. I didn't even know they existed. But Amelia, cold as ever, delivered her performance with outrage and grief. You were here for years, Emma. I trusted you. And this is how you repay me? Jasper ran in. What's going on? Why is Emma crying? What are you doing to her? No one answered. Emma tried to kneel even in cuffs to speak to him, but a police officer pulled her up by the arms. Jasper. My love. I didn't do anything. Please believe me. He tried to run to her. Tried to hug her. Tried to pull the cuffs away. But his father held him back, firm. Stay back, Jasper. She's not who you think she is. She is my MOM. Jasper screamed, his voice cracking with heartbreak. And in that scream, the world stopped. Amelia went breathless. The officers hesitated. Even his father looked stunned for a moment. But it was already too late. Emma was taken. Jasper ran to the window and watched the police car disappear down the street. His face pressed against the wet glass was the portrait of a broken childhood. And in that moment, a pain settled deep inside the boy's chest, a pain he would carry for the rest of his life. Emma was gone. She had no cell phone. No social media. No one in town knew where she'd gone. It was as if the world had swallowed her whole. Jasper cried for weeks. Refused to eat. Woke up screaming from nightmares. And in the few words he did say, one question echoed over and over. Is she coming back? Is Mommy Emma coming back? But no one answered. Because no one knew. Not even Amelia. She had won the battle of the ego, but destroyed her own son in the process. And deep down, she knew it. "15 years had passed. The mansion still stood. The garden was trimmed twice a week. The fine china was still rotated with the seasons. But inside those walls, much had changed. Jasper, now 26, was no longer the boy with the tender eyes. He was a handsome man, calm-spoken, steady gaze, but with a hollow in his chest that nothing in the world could seem to fill. His mother, Amelia, was sick. Her father was no longer with them. Diagnosis wasn't the worst, but it wasn't mild, either. The treatments had begun, and doctors made it clear she would need rest, care, and company. Jasper stepped up. Out of respect. Out of duty. But never out of love. Each morning, he made her breakfast and left it on a tray with a note. He drove her to appointments. Hired a nurse for the nights. And even with a packed schedule, he showed up when there were emergencies. But his heart was never really there. There were no hugs. No heart-to-hearts. Only routines. Silences. Loud, aching absences. One afternoon, Amelia was curled on the couch under a blanket, coughing softly. Jasper walked over, adjusted her pillow, checked her temperature with his fingers, then turned to leave. "Jasper, can you stay?" just for a bit?" He paused. "I've got a meeting in 30 minutes, Mom. But I can ask the nurse to." She didn't reply. She simply turned her face toward the window. And Jasper knew the unspoken had returned like it always did. Because it had always been there. Jasper had graduated with honors in business. Joined the family company at 23, and in just a few years had become essential. A prodigy. A promising heir. But the smiles came easily in boardrooms. Never in the mornings. He worked too much. Slept too little. Laughed rarely. And barely loved at all. His college friends, once inseparable, were now down to one meet-up a month, if that. His last relationship didn't survive a life that always put work first. Leisure trips had become business dinners. Weekends, spreadsheets. And Sundays, performance reviews. Jasper wore expensive suits. Drove quiet, luxurious cars. But a part of him, the most alive part, had been dead for years. Sometimes, at the end of a long day, he'd stare out from the top floor of the company tower. The city below blinking with its frantic lights. And he'd think, though he never said it out loud, "I became exactly what I swore I wouldn't. And I didn't even notice it happening." It was as if he hadn't just inherited wealth. But the emptiness of his parents, too. That life wasn't his. It was an inheritance he never asked for. A script someone else had written and that he followed out of obedience. It was just an ordinary morning. Jasper had taken the day off to sort through some old belongings at the insistence of the nurse who now cared for Amelia. The old wooden bookshelf creaked with every drawer he opened. Amid dusty books, faded photo albums, and forgotten envelopes, he found a box. Small. Worn by time. Tied with a pale blue ribbon, frayed and barely holding. He recognized it instantly. That box wasn't just some forgotten item. It was a time capsule straight from his childhood. With trembling hands, he untied the ribbon. Inside were memories time had never managed to erase. A tiny baby outfit with hand-stitched flowers, one he'd taken from Emma's things, days after she was forced out of the family's life. Small letters written in neat, loving handwriting from someone who had once taught him both the alphabet and affection. He fell asleep with a fever tonight, but he held my hand the whole time. My angel is strong. My boy will go far. A small wooden toy car, a birthday gift, still wrapped in yellowed paper. And finally, a faded photograph. Jasper as a baby, asleep in Emma's arms, smiling in that quiet peace that only comes from the comfort of true love. He closed his eyes. And he wept. Not as a man. Not as an executive. But as the boy whose childhood had been torn away by the wrong hands. "Emma, where are you?" he whispered, holding the baby clothes against his chest. That night, Jasper didn't sleep. Sitting in the bedroom armchair, he read through the letters again and again. Studied the handwriting. Looked for clues, anything that might lead to where she'd gone. By morning, he had made up his mind. He was going to find her. Even if it meant turning the city upside down. Even if it took months. He had to look her in the eyes again. He needed to thank her. He needed to heal. His first instinct was to search the old household records. Nothing. No address. No contact info. Then he remembered Vanessa, the longtime cook who had worked in their home for years. With some effort, he tracked down her number through a former employee at the company. When she answered, her voice had aged, but it was still warm, still familiar. "Jasper? Oh my goodness, you've grown, what a surprise. Why are you calling me after all these years?" Jasper took a deep breath. "Vanessa, I've missed you. I'm calling because I need to find Emma. Do you know where she is?" There was silence. A long pause. "I never thought this day would come. She's alive. She's okay. lives a quiet life, alone, but with dignity. She finds joy in helping out at a non-profit for kids. Never stopped taking care of others. Can you take me to her? I can. But prepare your heart, sweetheart, because she's still waiting for you. That evening, Jasper drove through the outer edges of the city, far from the mirrored office buildings, far from the expensive restaurants, far from the cold corporate corridors he called life. Outside, barefoot kids played in the streets. Laughter filled the air. Life felt simple. Real. Inside him, an emotion long buried was slowly waking up. Vanessa pointed toward a modest house, paint peeling at the corners. Jasper pulled over. Across the street, there she was. Her back to him. Hair now white, tied up in a bun. Her frame a little hunched with age, but her posture still steady, still warm, still familiar. Are you sure you want to go now? Vanessa asked gently. Jasper didn't answer. He just stared. Heart pounding. Tears streaming. And he didn't cross the street. Not yet. The room was quiet. Dimly lit by a single bedside lamp, the darkness felt heavier than usual. Jasper lay down slowly, still shaken by everything that had happened that day. But there was something else, something he'd been carrying in his pocket since he left Emma's old friend Vanessa's house. Carefully, he pulled out the folded paper, aged, yellowed, but perfectly preserved. Vanessa had handed it to him earlier, saying quietly, "Emma gave me this letter to give you when you were older. But after everything that happened to her, I was scared. I needed that job, and I didn't want to make things worse. I'm sorry." He understood. He sat with it for hours. Now, alone, he knew it was time. His hands trembled as he opened the note. It was her handwriting. Simple, steady, and heartbreakingly familiar. My dear Jasper, if you're reading this, know that I thought 1,000 times before writing it, and 1,000 more before deciding not to send it. But my heart needed to speak to you, even if only through silence. I don't know if you still remember me. Maybe you've grown up and erased my name like so many childhood things eventually fade. But me. I never forgot you. Not for a single day. You were so much more than a child in my care. You were light in one of the darkest chapters of my life. While I was rocking you to sleep, it was you who calmed my soul. While I taught you songs and words, you were the one teaching me what it meant to love, truly love, without asking for anything in return. You once called me Mom. And while others saw it as a mistake, for me, it was the most beautiful moment of my life. I kept that word close to my heart like a hidden treasure. I left without saying goodbye. Not by choice, but because life doesn't always give us fair endings. Since then, every birthday I imagined from afar, every milestone I could only dream of, hurt. Because I wanted to be there. I wanted to see you grow, laugh, succeed. I wanted to be a part of your life, even if only from the shadows. But I thought you'd forget me. And deep down, I hoped it would be easier that way. That maybe you'd be better off without my name tangled in your story. Still, every single day, I carried a love for you that never faded. A love that wasn't born from duty or blood, but from soul. You were, and will always be, the child life gave me without ever writing it down on paper. If you're reading this, know this much. I never stopped loving you. And even if you never need me again, I'll be here. Forever proud that I once got to love you this much, even in silence. With all the love I have. Emma. As he read, the tears came quietly. He didn't even realize they'd started. Every sentence felt like a memory. Every word, a hug he never got to feel. When he reached the end, he broke down, clutching the letter to his chest like it was a living piece of her, like somehow, it could give him back the time they lost. That night, he didn't sleep. But for the first time in a long, long while, he cried and smiled. Because now, more than ever, he knew what his heart had been whispering all along. Emma was his real mom. The next morning, the sky woke up overcast. It wasn't raining, but the air carried that quiet stillness, the kind that shows up right before something important. Jasper got dressed like he never had for a personal moment, with intention. No suit. Just a light-colored shirt, sleeves rolled up, and a look that no longer needed to hide. In his hands, he carried the old box of memories. On his chest, the weight of the years. And in his heart, the hope that she still wanted him. He made his way to the small non-profit Vanessa had given him the address for. The gate was slightly ajar. The sound of children's laughter filled the air, joyful and carefree, untouched by the weight of loss. Jasper walked through the garden with hesitant steps. He stopped at the glass door and took a deep breath. Inside was a wide, open room, with craft tables, toys scattered around, and walls covered in chalk drawings. And there she was. Emma. Her back turned. Sitting beside a little girl with braids, helping her glue tiny stars to a piece of paper. Even with her silver hair, her body hunched slightly with age, and her paint-splattered apron. Jasper knew her instantly. His heart raced like it used to when he was a child, running to meet her arms at the end of a hallway. He took a step. The door creaked softly. Emma turned, as if she could feel him there before even seeing him. Her eyes found his. For a moment, everything stopped. The children's voices disappeared. Time folded in on itself. The entire world went silent. "Oh my God," she whispered, placing a hand over her chest. Jasper took another step forward. "Emma." She stood up slowly, like someone waking from a long, gentle dream. And in a motion that didn't come from the body, but from the soul. She embraced him. Not formally. Not hesitantly. But with the urgency of someone who's just been reunited with a part of themselves. As if no time had passed. As if he was still the little boy she once rocked to sleep with soft lullabies. Jasper buried his face in her shoulder. And he cried. Cried like someone finally coming home. Emma held him tighter, saying nothing. Because some pain doesn't need words. And some reunions don't need explanations. The girl with braids watched in silence. Then smiled, as if she somehow understood there was something sacred in that hug. Jasper finally pulled back, wiping his eyes with the sleeve of his shirt. "I looked for you, Emma, for so long." Emma smiled, her eyes filled with tears. "And I never stopped waiting for you." It was late afternoon when Jasper pulled up in front of the old mansion. Same iron gate. Same pristine gardens. But something about it all felt hollow. Amelia sat on the front porch, wrapped in a shawl. Her face pale from the treatment, and her eyes, once full of vanity, now heavy with a weariness that went far beyond the physical. She saw her son approaching and straightened herself with effort. "Jasper, you're home early." "No. Today I came back, for real." She tried to smile, but the gesture faded before it could fully form. Jasper sat across from her, placed the old childhood box on the table, and slowly opened it. Amelia looked at the items, the hand-sewn baby clothes, the letters, the wooden toy car, as if she were staring at ghosts. "Where did you find this?" It was tucked away in the back of a closet. Hidden, like everything you tried to bury. She didn't answer. Jasper's voice stayed calm, but steady. "I went to see Emma." Amelia closed her eyes. "Did she tell you everything?" "No. Emma didn't speak poorly of you. She just said she loved me. And that she was taken from my life without any explanation." Silence followed. The wind rustled the leaves like the whole world had slowed its breathing. "Why, Mom?" His voice cracked. "Why did you do that to her?" "To me?" Amelia clutched the shawl to her chest and took several seconds to respond. "I didn't know how to be a mother, Jasper." "You knew how to be cruel." "Yes, and that's what eats me alive to this day." She looked at her son with eyes full of tears. For the first time, without the mask of arrogance. "I felt jealous. Afraid you'd love her more than me, and the truth is, you did. Because she was there. When I had a fever. When I fell off my bike. When you weren't. I wanted to love you. But I couldn't. And I hated Emma for doing what I never could. Amelia lowered her head, ashamed. So you made up the story about the theft. Called the police. Let them drag her away like a criminal, right in front of me. She nodded silently, tears running down her cheeks. I thought, after childhood, you'd forget her. That I'd still have time to become the mother I should have been. But it was already too late. Jasper held his gaze on her. Do you think she would ever forgive me? I don't know. But asking for forgiveness is the least a truly sorry person can do. Amelia looked at him with a kind of fragility that felt childlike. And you, will you ever forgive me, Jasper? He took a deep breath. I can't yet, Mom. The next day, Jasper's car pulled up in front of the nonprofit. From the back seat, Amelia stepped out slowly, leaning on her son's arm. The kids ran up to the gate, curious, but respectful. Inside, Emma was getting the children's snacks ready. Jasper entered first. Emma smiled as she saw him, but froze the moment she recognized who was behind him. Her body stiffened. Her eyes narrowed. The air turned heavy. Amelia walked forward, cautiously. Emma. Why are you here? Her voice came out low, but steady. Amelia hesitated. I just have one thing to ask. She knelt, with great effort, in front of Emma. Her eyes cast down. All pride gone. Forgive me. For everything. For taking away what you loved most. For silencing you. For humiliating you. I was a broken woman, but you were a mother to both of us. The words hung in the air. The children watched quietly. Jasper stood nearby, heart pounding hard in his chest. Emma, still as stone, looked at the frail woman in front of her. And then, in the way only real mothers know how, she reached out her hand. I don't carry hate, Miss Amelia. I just missed him. Amelia took her hand and wept like someone who had never truly cried before. The years that followed felt like a second chance, one life handed over with both gentleness and resolve. At 27, Jasper took the reins of the family company with a calm demeanor and a steady, clear gaze. He restructured departments, invested in community projects, and made space for his story to leave a mark far beyond the walls of the mansion where he grew up. But his most important decision had nothing to do with money. It was a gesture of justice. Of love. Of gratitude. In the newest section of the neighborhood where he was born, an old abandoned school was renovated and transformed into the Hope Community Early Learning Center. Bright classrooms. Nutritious meals. On-site therapists. Dedicated educators. And at the heart of it all, Emma. No longer as a nanny, but as the executive director. With a salary worthy of a top-tier professional and the respect of every single staff member. Jasper made sure of it. And when Emma, stunned, tried to politely decline, he gently took her hands, looked her in the eyes, and said, I'm not doing you a favor, Emma. I'm simply giving back a fraction of what you gave me. She smiled with teary eyes, unable to find words. That week, the headlines read, Jasper Foster officially takes over W. Foster Group. Promises to combine profit with social impact. Press conference scheduled for Friday. The event was held in the company's main auditorium. Cameras, reporters, shareholders, local officials, community leaders, all in attendance. And among them, seated in the front row, was Emma. Hair neatly pinned back with a simple clip. A navy blue dress. Hands folded in her lap. But her eyes, just as bright as the day she reunited with her boy. Jasper walked onto the stage, his expression carrying a different kind of glow. Not the glow of someone who had just gained power, but of someone who had finally found his way back home to himself. Good afternoon. Today, as the new CEO of this group, many expect me to talk about strategy, investments, and returns. But I need to begin differently. I need to share who made me who I am. The journalists glanced at each other. Emma lowered her head slightly, unsure. I grew up in a home where nothing was missing. Except for one thing, warmth. My birth mother, who's here today, Amelia, gave me life. Gave me a name. And in the last few years, has given me something I never thought I'd receive, her truth. Amelia, seated in the back, shut her eyes tightly to keep the tears from falling. But when I think of who I truly am, of every value I hold close, there's only one woman I can thank. The woman who raised me. He turned toward the front row. Emma. She looked up, surprised. Jasper stepped off the stage, took the wireless mic, and walked over to her. This woman taught me what it means to be loved. She showed me that life isn't about appearances, but about the everyday acts of care. That a person's worth doesn't come from their bank account, it comes from their ability to give of themselves. She taught me how to love. The audience began to tear up. Cameras zoomed in on Emma's glistening eyes. Then Jasper knelt down before her, in front of the entire world, and said, his voice shaking, "You didn't give birth to me. But you gave me life. And if I am the man I am today, it's because I was raised by two women. One gave me life." He paused. Locked eyes with her. "And the other taught me how to love." Emma brought her hands to her face. The tears flowed like an old river finally free. Jasper stood up, took her hands in his, and, in front of everyone, declared, "Mom, I love you." The entire auditorium was swept with emotion. Reporters forgot their notes. Applause erupted. Amelia, in the back, wept silently. Not out of guilt this time, but out of release. And in that moment, the whole world understood. That young man had one. Not in business, but in soul. Months later, the Hope Early Learning Center had become a model across the country. Emma walked through the playground, gently holding the hand of a little boy who was crying because he missed his mom. She knelt down, wiped away his tears, and began singing a soft lullaby, the same one she used to soothe Jasper. Just then, Jasper arrived behind her, a lanyard around his neck and a folder of documents in hand, ready for a meeting. But before anything else, he stepped closer, lightly touched her shoulder, and said, "Mom, can I steal you for a minute?" She turned, smiled, and replied, "Only if it comes with a hug." They embraced, warm and close, and one of the kids nearby asked, "Is he your son, Miss Emma?" She smiled, her eyes closed with emotion. "Yes, sweetie, he's my boy."